Hi guys, welcome to our first Instagram live session. And it's going to be an interesting, exciting one.
Hi, Meghana.
Hi, Vibhinta. So nice to have you on.
I'm so excited to be here. I think this is going to be a fun session.
I'm pretty sure it is because I guess we connected on a really interesting topic, a subject that we both have been super passionate about. And it's nice to have that, commonality because I don't get to discuss eyewear with too many people around me, except for those who really know what I am talking about, right? So,
Yeah.
luxury and eyewear are two things that SR Gopal Rao has become synonymous with, and we felt like this would be a great session after listening to you, talking to you, connecting with you, and hearing your ideas about luxury. This is something that is what we've been looking forward to.
It's quite
Sorry.
cool because I've experienced SR Gopal Rao and your service earlier, and I get it. I get where you're coming from, and I can tell that your family is really passionate about luxury. It's not just a product to you, it's the entire concept. And I think that's why we connected because it goes beyond just your love for eyewear. It's also about creating that same excitement you feel when you're handling the products.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, and thank you for that. So, just a background, S.R. Gopal Rao has been around since 1936, and I would be the fifth generation optician to take the business forward. And about Vibhinta, she is a luxury connoisseur, a consultant, a image consultant, and a luxury professional and an expert on the subject. And we are so happy to have you over here with us right now. And just to dive into the topic, why don't you tell us a little more about yourself?
Okay, first of all, someone told me very recently, and I agree. I think the word expert is a little overrated for any of us. What I would say is, I'm a luxury addict, not in the sense of, oh, I'm so addicted to the products. I'm so addicted to the concept, and there's almost a sense of power and excitement that comes with knowing luxury, understanding luxury, and selling luxury. So that's something I'm passionate about. I'm an image consultant, so I work with individuals and companies, helping them become the best version of themselves by creating an outward image that is truly reflective of what their purpose and what they stand for, essentially, right? And when it comes to the optical industry, I've been, let's say, an outsider who sneaked their way into the optical industry because I've been part of the industry off and on for about 6-7 years. And I love the products like you do. It's super exciting. It's such a niche category, but it's fabulous. And when I say I'm an outsider, it's because I bring a fresh perspective to the industry. So I don't look at it from an optometrist point of view. I look at it from a fashion point of view. And that's where my thought process might be slightly different from a regular optician.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think a blend of both, this being product which does support your eyes and gives you sight, along combining it with what it is designed for, giving it the importance that it requires, both in terms of fashion and the medical expertise is like a great blend. It creates a balance which is so important. And so you're absolutely right about the fashion bit of it as well, because that's the first, when someone looks at you, the first thing that they see is your face. And if you're wearing glasses, the first object that they notice are your eyeglasses. And as a business, we've been around for about 85 years. And I'm telling you, like the only subject that we've discussed ever at home has been eyewear. I think everyone talks about it so passionately. So the minute a new brand launches something or a new collection comes out, I don't think I've ever seen anyone getting as excited about anything else as they do about eyewear at home as well. So tell me what you think, like how would you describe luxury and how would you consider a service to be luxurious? Like what are the aspects that you would look for?
Technically, the definition of luxury is something that has a higher perceived value than its actual intrinsic benefit that it's providing. But if I have to talk about luxury, there's something that says luxury cannot exist without quality. So, above and beyond everything else, above and beyond it being a status symbol, anything, there is a sense of quality that is attached with luxury that comes with the product, the manufacturing process, and the quality of service that's associated with it, right? Other than quality, of course, I think luxury stands for, it's a status symbol. So it's the perceived conspicuous value. The fact that if I'm using a luxury product, people should be able to identify it as such. Then there's also heritage. The old world luxury. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at any brand across the world, it's about the heritage and the craftsmanship and using old methods to produce something and all of those things. There's a desire to stand out, or there's a desire to fit in, which is associated with luxury. So it's about the society and how society perceives it, which is why there are certain brands and certain products that become iconic, and then everyone wants one. And uniqueness. The fact that everything's in limited quantities and nobody has something that I do. So there's flip sides of the same coin. I want what everybody else does, but I also want my product to be unique. So.
Right. And how would you apply this to eyewear? Like we both seen what the difference between something which is mass manufactured, which is versus something which is handcrafted, well curated, the story that goes behind it. So what exactly would you classify as luxury eyewear? Maybe that's something we can discuss.
Yeah, I think luxury eyewear, first and foremost, is about the quality of the product. So it's not just the way it looks on my face. It's not just the aesthetic value of it. It's the quality of the material that goes into it. It's the processing that goes into it. I mean, if I have to explain it to, say, an individual who doesn't know anything about the eyewear manufacturing process, I would say the quality of the product, the acetate or the tortoiseshell or whatever it is, or the metals which are going into it, the difference is essentially like saying real leather versus fake leather, or solid wood versus laminate or board particles, that kind of comparison. So another thing which is very interesting, luxury eyewear brands in the world. So let's talk about, say, Dita. Dita says each product that they manufacture, there's over 300 steps to the process, and it takes 8 months for every frame to be manufactured. Whereas if you look at mass production, you could be producing hundreds of frames in a day. And when you put on an eyewear, when you wear a luxury eyewear, you can actually feel the difference. I think this is something you might be able to explain better, but it's also about the balance and the way it sits on your face that provides that ultimate comfort. So all of those little adjustments and things are possible only when there's a thought process behind the design. It can't just be, oh, I saw a photograph and I decided to copy it. It has to be engineering. It's very technically driven, the entire R&D process behind luxury eyewear. It's very intriguing.
Yeah, I think the story starts with how there's a collection, and the collection draws from certain elements, and then a story is created around it, and that percolates into every single product that is made by that particular brand. So one of the brands that we were talking about and that just happened to describe it coincidentally as the shape of a pen. And I couldn't find a better description for it, right? So we were talking about Mont Blanc, and I was trying to tell you about how, there was a customer who was looking specifically for Mont Blanc and the rounded element on the temples, so on the sides. And that is something that I couldn't locate in any other brand. So what makes a brand like an eyewear distinctive is those finer elements that go into the manufacturing process.
When you're talking about Mont Blanc, immediately you say the brand to anybody and they think of the pen. That's the basic inspiration for their eyewear range. If you look at it, the roundness of the temple, or the stem as most people would know it, comes primarily because it's a replication of the shape of the pen. So the round is the pen, and if you see the end or the tip of the eyewear, there's the emblem which is in the Mont Blanc logo is in it on the flat surface, just as it would be on the top of a pen. So it's actually an absolute inspiration from the core product of the brand, because Mont Blanc's heritage, like we were talking about history and heritage, their heritage is writing instruments, and they've taken the same design elements, the same materials, and translated it into functional eyewear. So it's not just a copy paste of the color or the design scheme, but the eyewear is also functional. They created reading glasses with the clip of the writing instrument. So as a person who needs reading glasses, I could put it in the breast pocket of my jacket, and the clip would look like I had the Montblanc pen in my pocket. And when I took it out, it would be reading glasses. So I could have two clips in my pocket. One would be the pen and one would be the eyewear. And it's also a functional aspect. It makes it easier for me to not lose my glasses, right?
Exactly. So just to demonstrate what Vibhinta was talking about, so I have a Montblanc frame over here. And in fact, this is a different model, but the piece that I had was so round, it looked exactly like a pen. And this is the part that she's talking about, the Montblanc emblem, which is there at the tip. So from the top, it just looks like a pen. It doesn't even look like eyewear. And that's how seamlessly the entire product line is embedded into each other. So I love how in eyewear, they actually take elements like it could be a buckle, it could be an iconic logo, and that you would find, like, for example, even in Bulgari, you would find the jewel collection to have the elements that it would have in jewelry across their eyewear as well. And this is something that we were talking about, where the embellishing, this, like the brand would describe this as jewelry and not as eyewear at the end of it, right?
Well, again, the heritage is of Bulgari's jewelry, right? So even when you look at the Bulgari perfume bottles, they have the same design elements. The bottle is very reminiscent of the jewelry designs, and the same little details or the little parts of the jewelry, the same design is incorporated into the temples of the eyewear, because they say that they're not just creating eyewear, they're creating jewelry, and it's on your face. It's the most prominent piece of jewelry you could be wearing. And brands which are well known for jewelry like Bulgari and Cartier also incorporate a lot of precious materials into their eyewear. So, there'll be gold and there'll be actual precious stones in the eyewear, especially in the limited editions and the higher levels, because that's what the brand is about. It's about preciousness. So they bring that in.
So I like how, the Montblanc, like what you were telling me about Montblanc and how it started with writing, and that is the ethos of the brand, as well as Bulgari having their ethos in jewelry or Cartier having their ethos in jewelry, translating to every other element that they add to their portfolio. So that's something which is really interesting. And I think that's what makes it even more luxurious, because that's something that cannot be replicated easily, even if the design is copied. It could be a square or a round, but it's not just a square and a round. It's in that temple where there is that detailing, there is the rounded element that makes you feel so comfortable. In fact, the person who had purchased that Mont Blanc wanted it so badly, like, the same element. If I had to give him another seat, he would probably pick up a few more pieces just so that he can keep only that eyepiece with him. So it's either the attachment to that element that you realize only after you wear it and, you touch and feel it, or it's the attachment to the brand itself that creates this entire
Montblanc
experience.
is definitely one of those brands that has an attachment, like in a huge following, because Montblanc's not just about a brand. It's a symbol of having arrived. It's a status symbol which says that I've achieved something in my life, right? And that's why it's such a hit with a lot of gentlemen who've achieved things in their life. It's a very male-oriented brand. Where we're talking about history and brands which are hundreds of years old, there's also newer brands. Like the biggest example being Tom Ford. I don't think there's any other brand that's taken the eyewear industry by storm the way Tom Ford has. And what's incredible about Tom Ford is it's an eyewear brand. The first product line that Tom Ford ever created was eyewear, was sunglasses, right? And there's no heritage of falling back on anything else, except the man himself is the legend. And the T on the Tom Ford, it's iconic. We all recognize it, but the precision with which that's done, people don't realize the steps of the process that goes into fixing the T into that temple and incorporating it into the front of the frame. And the reason why the man managed to do it is because Tom Ford, before he studied fashion, studied architecture. And he has a very strong sense of engineering, architecture and precision design. And he was very, very particular that T has to come into the brand. And I do believe, I've heard from people in the manufacturing of the products, that the longest time in any of the Tom Ford designs goes into perfecting the position and attaching the T to the frame. That's actually the most complicated step in processing it. So, who knew?
Yeah, that's news for me as well. And that's interesting, right? So I think it's such a vast subject like luxury. It's like an ocean of information. And as you keep researching or interacting with people, you get to know more and more about what goes into making something absolutely luxurious, right? And just to add to that as well, like I have seen replicas of different brands. Like I've seen people maybe like, cheaper variants of one style coming out in so many different ways. In fact, even this tea, I have seen another unbranded product trying to replicate it. But the finesse of this is lost. I mean, there's no way they can replicate the exact same style. So I think you had mentioned that this tea is patented, right?
Yeah.
And the logo cannot be. So that's the reason why when you buy a Tom Ford, you know it is a Tom Ford.
Well, unfortunately, the fact remains that imitation is the best form of flattery. So,
Yeah.
while there's a lot of people trying to replicate it, they are never going to be able to achieve that quality.
Right. So now I think I'm going to come to a really tricky part of our discussion, but I think most people would want this part to be addressed. And I feel like largely what we've discussed already covers the answer for it, but it's good to know why luxury is priced the way it is. So, is there anything that you can throw light on when it comes to this particular subject?
Yes, of course, R&D and the amount of thought and expertise that goes into designing the product is super crucial, right? And you would know the equipment to manufacture stuff like this also costs a lot. And all of these very high, so-called priced, but I'd say the higher value eyewear products are all actually manufactured in a geographical area where manufacturing is expensive. So they're all made in Europe, right? And
Yeah.
the emphasis of handcrafting each product. So each product is lovingly manufactured. Like I said, the number of steps that go into manufacturing a product, all of those things matter. But other than that, think about it. Look at the service you're providing. You're not just selling a product. You're providing a service. You're giving an assurance that if anything ever goes wrong, you are there to help out. There is the entire experience of buying luxury that comes into play. And honestly, there's been research for multiple product categories, not just eyewear. But it's very funny the way luxury works. They say that if you drop a price point of an already existing luxury brand, it actually becomes less desirable for a lot of people. And if I have a product that's manufactured in Europe versus a product that's
Yeah.
manufactured in China, of course there's a huge cost difference involved because of the fact that it's just geographically more expensive to produce them.
The other element that goes into this, right? Because this is something I was reading about as well. Earlier, what used to happen is, and even now it does happen, to make a particular design, like I was telling you about the Mont Blanc and just the temple, and how the temple is so well rounded. And these are elements that are not thought of when it comes to fast fashion. So if I have to classify the two, there would be fast fashion and then there is the luxury eyewear. So what happens is fast fashion is trying to churn out a product every 6 weeks or maybe 4 weeks. So there is no time which is spent on R&D, on design, on manufacturing, whereas it is every piece is just treated like a batch and then it just goes into large scale production and distribution. So the key over there for them is to reduce the logistical costs because they've already like found a way to reduce the cost of making the product. Whereas what happens with luxury eyewear, it takes about 3 to 4 years to come up with a design that goes well. And we are talking about elements that need to sit well on your face. You shouldn't get a headache when you're wearing it. It shouldn't press against your temple sides. The bridge should sit perfectly well. And it shouldn't, like if you're wearing an acetate frame, even though it feels like it looks bulky. So I'm just going to show you one of the frames that I have over here. This is by a brand called Cutler and Gross. The signature of this frame is that they use, while everyone is trying to go thin, this brand differentiates itself by going thick. Okay, so they use 9 mm acetate to make their products. So while I feel like
Ross is iconic that way. I mean, they come from a heritage. They started in the 1960s, and they're a brand that was started by a few optometrists together and they knew exactly what is going into manufacturing comfort for the end user, right? And when they started with the brand, these are the trends that these were the styles that were in trend, and they carried that signature look. So if Cutler and Ross suddenly stops being manufacturing their iconic products, they're going to lose their identity, right?
Absolutely. So then what we realized is that the 3 to 4 years, factoring all the details that go into making this aesthetically pleasing functional piece, still needs to be aesthetic, it still needs to be functional, takes about 3 to 4 years. And like you said, there are brands that go into 300, 400 details of craftsmanship. So when I look at all this, I know when I'm buying something, there is value, there is design, there is emotion that has gone into creating that one particular piece. So if I buy it, I know tomorrow I'm not junking it, immediately. I'm going to keep that, make it timeless. I've heard people, so these are stories that I've heard people sharing with us, which is what I find amazing about family businesses. The elements that they retain from their family, like if someone's grandfather, what is that one piece that you can treasure for life? So I have seen people keeping eyewear watches. These are two products that they retain with them for life. And Cartier, Ray-Ban, although Ray-Ban doesn't fall under the luxury segment, back, I'm talking about the 80s when I think the way Ray-Ban was manufactured was very different from the way it is manufactured today. People have still retained that particular piece of eyewear and they can still use what their grandparents or their fathers have used, they can still continue to use the same
But
piece.
see, if Ray-Ban
Yeah,
had maintained that production quality and that standard, it would be luxury pricing today, right? They chose to
absolutely.
not do that, and which is why those old products, because of their uniqueness and because there's an emotion attached. I mean, let's be
Yeah,
honest, it's not just technical, there's love
yeah,
attached. All
yeah,
of these
yeah.
iconic brands that you're talking about came out of someone's passion for the product, like you, right? It comes from being wanting to create something that is the best in that particular product category, and that's something fast fashion doesn't do. Also, you were saying fast fashion is cheaper, it comes and goes, and you know why that happens, right? There's a fashion cycle that exists, and there's imitation because the fashion cycle very clearly states that uh, it's the top end brands that do the development, that do the research, and this is across all product categories.
Correct.
They do the innovation and they come up with path breaking designs. And when those path breaking designs are picked up by the right people and then are worn by the right people, what we call influencers today, right? The
Yeah,
it gains popularity, and then the other brands start copying or imitating those designs. But as they copy or imitate, they dilute the authenticity of the product, they dilute the quality of the product to make it affordable for everybody, right? So
right.
luxury in its sense, first of all, has to be path breaking in terms of something, like I said, it has to be unique. People move on from older designs and want something new and exciting, and the quality asks for the price.
Yep,
And
I
the
agree.
cheaper versions are just going to be that, they're going to be imitations.
Yeah. So I think every like so there would probably be a purpose for every single product. And I know if I'm going to spend money and I'm going to pick up something which is of value, of quality, of luxury, I'm going to treasure that. And that's the whole purpose behind luxury. You treasure what you purchase. You're not adding waste to the environment. You're trying to conserve something and stretch the life of it for as long as it lasts. And that's, I mean, I find that absolutely beautiful about luxury. So it's like when I'm selling eyewear, I'm talking about the story behind it. And that's what, I think from this session, when we are talking about decoding luxury eyewear, hopefully the takeaway will be that, right?
Isn't
So,
luxury
yeah,
like a celebration? I mean, think about it. I go and buy something to celebrate my life or to reward myself, and I'm going to keep that product with me because of the emotion attached to it. I'm not going to do that with a fast fashion product.
absolutely. Yeah. So then we were talking about offbeat brands, right? Like Cutler and Gross and there are a couple of these new brands which are not new. I wouldn't call them, they are relatively new. Not all of them would be, but some of them focus only on making luxury eyewear. So we have Cutler and Gross as one of them. And that's the other thing about luxury eyewear, right? Their placements. I've seen this happening in like so many movies, and the designs for it, probably like Cutler and Gross was used in the movie Kingsman, and the entire star cast used it. And we all took notice of the eyewear at that point. We didn't know the brand. And it was through the movie and much later on that the brand came into India, that we all related to it. We knew about the movie and we loved the way it looked on the people over there. And then when we heard about the story of Cutler and Gross and the way they make their eyewear and what makes it so uniquely different, it was amazing. So do you have any other brands like that you relate to? Anything else in eyewear that you feel is
A lot of
amazing
these,
and focused?
a lot of these brands are actually not new. It's just that they're so niche, and now with
Yeah.
the world evolving and us getting a lot of exposure to brands across the world, we're discovering them. I think Oliver Peoples is one of them. It's a
Absolutely.
beautiful brand which has existed for a while, but
Hmm.
people are only just now realizing how stunning it is. I think it started in the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken, the brand, but it became popular only now. So
In fact, I have
you,
one piece over here with me to demonstrate what goes into detailing of eyewear. I don't know if you can see. Are you able to see that? The
yes, yeah.
yeah. So this, and look at the sleekness of the product, right? It is so beautifully crafted. I mean, I think, yeah. So all over people, one of the brands that are very
I
focused on making
see.
eyewear.
Also, Oliver Peoples is one of those brands which stands very apart from the other luxury products, where they say we don't care about the logo. We're not here to show off. We're here to give you super quality, right?
Yeah.
And when their story is again beautiful. They bought a bunch of vintage frames when they started way back and created
Okay.
their first collection based on those vintage frames.
Wow. Okay. That's
And
interesting.
when everybody else, I think they started in the 80s, and 80s was all about futuristic design and things like, and bright colors, and trying to envision what the future is going to be. These guys went back to retro. They went
Vintage.
back to
Yeah.
original tortoise shell glasses. They went back to what was beautiful in the 50s and things like that. Those iconic designs that we associate with old world glamour. And
Yeah.
they started manufacturing that stuff. So it wasn't about being
Yeah.
flashy, it was about being classic. And classic
Classy.
stuff is never going to go out of trend, no matter what. Right? Which is why Oliver Peoples is as relevant today as it was like 20 years ago, and the same frame, you're going to love it forever. I mean, and
Yeah.
it's going to be like sophisticated on you no matter which era you're wearing it in.
It's timeless.
But yeah, another one of my favorite brands, which is purely eyewear and is new and is like just everyone's aspiration right now, is Dita.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Dita, then
Dita's
there's Maikita.
Hi,
Yeah, go
Deepika.
ahead.
But I mean, I think Dita's iconic, and you were talking about the celebrities wearing them, and that's what made Dita what it is, because it was so over the top when it came to design. It was loud, it was flashy, and it appealed to a certain kind of influencer, with somebody who wanted to be noticed, somebody who wanted people to see that they were wearing the latest trend, somebody who wanted to be flashy and have bold and super bold design. And that's what
Hmm.
Dita's about. The one thing Dita's never going to be is unnoticed.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And there's, yeah,
that's why every celebrity loves it, because as soon as they wear it, it's
that's
everyone
something you
knows who
see.
they're wearing or
Yeah.
what they're wearing.
Yeah, and I remember, I mean, I remember reading something about, this they have these
Screws.
hexagon shaped screws,
Yeah.
which is like their signature. So, even though some of these elements may seem so small and insignificant, what we realize is that only when we wear it and continue using it, that its value actually translates later.
Yeah, and
And
and the thing,
yeah,
those hexagonal screws, right? They're a design
yeah,
element. They're very well
yeah,
thought of, but they're also a functional element.
absolutely.
No one other than an authentic service person can mess with the design. There also the hexagonal screws, I think, are have better grip and they don't wear out so
Wear
easily,
out. Yeah,
and they
yeah,
provide more stability to the frame. And so that's engineering. I mean, that's not
yeah.
just aesthetics; it's pure engineering to make a frame that's better.
Yeah, and that's something we were talking about, right? About how these pieces, like it's very easy to identify a luxury eyepiece. You would know when you're buying something which is not real versus something which is real, like a replica versus a original piece. Because every single product has a unique code which is on it, and that code can be verified at any time by the manufacturer. And
They,
that's
yeah, you
that's
can trace.
information that,
They
yeah,
all have tags, so they're all tagged with a unique number. And if there is something wrong with your piece, and there's something that needs to be figured out, if it was a manufacturing defect or whatever it might be, they can actually trace it back to the exact time and date and the person who produced that particular piece on the factory floor. And that's what makes it easier to identify if your piece is authentic or not.
yeah,
You were talking, and a lot of people, luxury brands are always concerned about uh, the proliferation of fake products which exist, because it's bad for the brand's reputation, the name. I mean, just because you're copying the logo doesn't mean you're giving everything else with it. And you were
yeah.
saying to me earlier about how it is an issue, and I told you that story about how you can actually tell by the coding systems. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why it becomes so important as to, I think, what happened now with eyewear as a product, right? It became available through so many different channels. Possibly not, it went out of control of how it could be managed in terms of, and I think this happens not just with eyewear, it happens with so many other products as well, right? The minute something interesting comes out in the market, the first thing, like you said, imitation is the best like form of flattery. So the place where you buy these particular products from is really important. And even though people might find like these products available at the lowest cost in certain places, it could be online, it could be offline. The place through which every luxury product is sourced is super important. Otherwise, even if you spend 10,000 for a product which is worth say 20 or 30,000, you're still spending 10,000 rupees on a product which is not original or real. So
And
that is something that it should be considered, I guess.
every luxury product picks and chooses their points of sale very carefully, right? Not every
Yeah,
product is available let's just talk about eyewear
that
since
is
we
true.
are on the
That's
topic.
true.
There's very
Yeah,
few retailers who have the capacity to sell luxury eyewear, because better than anybody else. There's an infrastructure in the back that goes on, support and service, and having stores in the best locations, having access to that kind of client. All of that is a cost that you guys are incurring to sell the product. And one thing which is terrible about the proliferation of online in everything in this world is the fact that it's so easy to sell products which are counterfeit, right? Because no one can track you. You can be selling from any part of the world. Who am I as a customer going to go complain to? I'm going to get duped. We tried this once as an experiment where we ordered a very iconic product from a very, very famous brand, from one of these online retailers of the brand, saying that they're selling an authentic product. The product came to us 3 weeks later than it was promised, first of all. So there was, it was 40% cheaper than the original price. So it was still costing me some 12,000 rupees to buy, right?
hmm,
It came in an unmarked box. It came without an invoice. It came from some port in Hong Kong. It said something like gift for so and so, because they didn't want to show the taxes, and well, you know, in India import duties are a lot, so that might have even accounted for the 40% cheaper product, right? And the product came to us, we took it back to the manufacturers and had it checked, and it was definitely fake. So
There you go.
here I am, I've lost
Yeah.
money, I
Yeah.
have a product which is not genuine, or even if I don't have the capacity to be able to go to a manufacturer, tomorrow if something happens to my eyewear, or I come to you saying put lenses in it, you're going to say where did you buy it from, you're going to ask me for the bill, I'm not going to have anything to give you, and I'm
Yeah.
stuck with the most unpleasant experience in the world, right? So why subject myself
Absolutely.
to that? And
Yeah.
which is why I think it's so important. I mean, I'm saying, talking from a complete consumer point of view, I
Yeah.
wish a lot more opticians came online. Not, I mean, the way you guys are doing, not to sell the product online, but to give the customer an option to virtually experience the product. For me to say, okay, do you have this in stock? And then maybe I can come and try it out and I can order it. Instead of me going to all these dubious sites every time I try to buy something online, you know.
Fair
So
enough.
I don't have to make the purchase online, but the experience needs to be digital as well. I want to see my
Yeah.
product. I want to do my research before I come to you. That's my
Absolutely.
point, right?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And especially with today's the current situation where people are finding it hard to step out. I guess what was intended to happen a few years ago is bound to happen today. So
I
your
hope
wish
so.
might come true really soon.
I hope so.
So yeah, just to like take it to tie it down and to probably like move into the participant, the audience questions. Before we go there, there was something that you had shared with me in our discussions on the Association of India with Luxury and how it has evolved. And I found this information very interesting. So I'm going to let you talk about it because I mean the way you narrated that was it just like opened my mind and I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting.
You know, I think we as Indians very often underestimate our propensity to consume luxury. I mean, honestly, what we think is just run of the mill in our lives is actually considered luxury in so many parts of the world. Let's talk about the most basic thing. Okay, politically slightly touchy, but let's say every time a girl is born into a family, the family starts collecting gold, right? For
Yeah.
jewelry, to save up for her. Whatever part of the country we're in, and no matter how much we deny and say it's not true, it happens. Or whatever. We, in our families, you know, we gift women gold jewelry. We invest a lot in jewelry. You know, when we were growing up in the 80s, Meghana, we used to have silver glasses and tea sets and chairs and everything. We had no value for those kind of materials. Even the families from the lowest income hold some amount of jewelry, whether it's in gold or silver. So they're precious metals everywhere in the world, right? But we think, oh, chalta hai, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
like gold percolates through every strata of our
and
ecosystem. Like
and then the
everyone wants
concept
to
of
invest in it.
having 22 karat gold anywhere else in the world is shocking. It doesn't exist. They're just like, for them 14 karat is like, oh my god. I mean, walk into a Tiffany store and see what they make of silver. 92.5 sterling silver. I mean, I'm just looking at them saying, what are you talking about? You know, I can buy it on the roadside in India. Like, it's silver, right? So we love luxury. You and I, and every other young woman can associate with this. Think of the amount of money we spend on clothes for occasions like festivals and weddings. You would go and spend easily upwards of 20 to 30,000 rupees on a single sari, a silk sari, which is handloom. You know, there's again gold woven into it. I mean,
Woven into it.
or
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
or it's hand woven. Our fabrics, all of those, we have such a rich heritage of craftsmanship, which is, well, as I said, is synonymous with luxury. We have handcrafted products for everything, right?
Yeah.
I don't go and buy I don't know, like a Calvin Klein dress or things like that, or an Armani outfit because I don't have the occasions in my life. But think about it. If I had to go to work every single day in a business suit, I might be buying a Chanel suit, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
my occasions demand for it. But in the country I live in, my occasions demand for the saris, the whole 9 yards, the lehengas, and all of those, and we spend a lot of money on it. India has a history of Maharajas. India has some of the most exquisite palace hotels in the world. We do luxury hospitality like no one else in the world does. Atiti Devo Bhava is very real in our country, and to walk into one of those luxury hotels in our country versus anywhere else in the world, the experience that we provide is sublime. We have some of the most expensive hotel rooms in the world, right? I mean,
Right.
our palace hotels and our
Palace
luxury
hotels.
suites,
Yeah.
and not just the palace hotels, even the other hotels, the luxury suites, our standards are another level when it comes to that kind of hospitality. The Indian Maharajas, I mean, look at our royalty. There's that very famous story of the Maharaja of Patiala when he went to London and wanted to buy a Rolls Royce, and he was turned away saying, "Oh, you probably can't afford it." He came back to India and placed the single largest order of Rolls Royces. I think he ordered over 40. I really don't remember the number at all, but he ordered some insane amount of Rolls Royces. And when people asked him, "What are you going to do with them?" he said, "I'm going to use them to clean the streets of Patiala. Because I can."
Right.
Some of the largest commissions to brands like Cartier were given by Indian royalty. And these are the associations that we don't know about, we don't talk about. I mean, we manufacture luxury as well. We are the biggest suppliers and polishers of diamonds. I mean, the largest diamond polishing and cutting happens in India, in Surat, right?
Okay. Okay.
I remember this happened a few years ago. I was walking down Place Vendôme in Paris, which is where all the largest jewelers are there. So, you've got your Bulgaris, you've got your
Cartiers,
you've got, and
Tiffany.
what
Sure.
Audemars Piguet and all of those, right? They're all
Okay.
in a line of
Okay.
these insane, beautiful stores that sell the most exquisite jewelry in the world. And I was walking down and I was looking at those windows, and they look like everything we wear at our weddings. And then I was talking to one of the brands, one of the people who work for the brands, and they said, yeah, a lot of those are actually designed in India. A lot of them
Wow.
are actually manufactured by Indian craftsmen, because nobody does jewelry the way you guys do. So,
That's amazing.
I mean, we manufacture it, we consume it, we just do
Yeah.
it in a very different way. We don't
In a different
consume
way.
all the luxury products that the world does. But,
Mhm.
I mean, look at our love for cars, look at forget it, if you forget everything else. The most expensive houses in the world are in India in terms of the per square foot value we pay for our
The
homes.
realist. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
real estate, there are people, I was having a conversation with somebody recently saying a house in South Bombay costs more than, costs infinitely more than a house in the middle of London. That's a little crazy, no? And we
Yeah.
say we don't consume luxury. I don't know why we say that.
So it's there around us. We are just not aware of it. It's very much a part of our DNA, and it just goes by us very
We're
nonchalantly.
spoiled.
Like,
I mean, we have. How much staff do you have in your home right now, Meghna? Think
so
about
that's a
it.
conversation we are going to save.
Domestic
Absolutely.
staff.
Yeah, yeah. So getting into the comments that we have here, manufacturing is not expensive. Tom Steady says it's the brand price. I think we discussed that. We spoke
I,
about the pricing and what all goes into it.
yeah,
Yeah,
manufacturing, as I said, depends on where you're manufacturing and what product you're
absolutely.
manufacturing and what
Yeah.
quality you're manufacturing, right?
It's a quality. And I would say like a lot of products from Japan and Italy and Austria and like other parts of the world are all handcrafted,
Yeah.
beautifully thought out, and a lot of steps go into making that eyewear to perfection. So it totally depends on where it is manufactured, like you said. Sneha says, what would you expect from a person selling luxury eyewear? Do you think a person selling luxury eyewear plays a key role in sales closure, or does the brand itself just? Well, that's a super interesting question, and I think it's 100% a balance of both. The story goes with the brand, and just telling a person the brand name is not going to justify its sale to the consumer unless the consumer comes in with the thought that I want a Mont Blanc and I want that particular model, or I want a Cartier and I want that particular model. But the sale can be so easily lost if the person who's selling it doesn't know what they are talking about.
Yeah.
So it's the experience, the overall experience, the store setup, the salesperson's information on the subject, the product itself by in terms of quality, the description of the eyewear, how it is presented, the elements that go into selling that particular piece,
Meghna, you guys do
right?
this so well. The way your stores are, the way you service people. But I have to tell you, this is my dream and my passion. I want to
Right.
reach a, I want to help the optical industry in India reach a point where they can sell luxury the way the brand sells it. I mean,
This, yeah,
a lot of people keep saying, they walk into stores, optical stores, and say discount, or stuff like that. There's always the reason that's happening is because I don't walk into a Tom Ford store and say, give me a discount. The reason it's happening is because you don't get, you're not providing me with what I want to experience. So walking into a store should be like an experience for all of my senses. I should immediately be calm and relaxed, and I should feel it like I've walked into another dimension. Walking in should be a reward for me. I should feel happy, and I should be served by people there. I should be made to feel important and special, and my needs need to be taken care of, right? And that's
yeah,
what's missing. When I'm talking to a person who's behind the counter, he or she, first of all, needs to look like they can sell luxury to me. And they don't. He or she should look like somebody who understands the brand as much as I do, and values it as much as the brand does. And he or she should be able to tell me what's going to work for me. I want to
absolutely.
be able to put on a pair of glasses and get validation from people around me saying, this works for you, this doesn't work for you. Somebody needs to educate the customer, and the only person who can do that is the optician. So if you can educate the customer about the value of the product, if you can educate the customer about the story, and if you can educate the customer about what works for the customer as a style assistant for the customer, you're going to make the sale.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. Yeah, absolutely. So it's like the entire experience that counts. And somewhere down the line, what happens with the story, right? It gets lost in translation. That's something we were talking about, which hopefully this session and many more will help, like, overcome those barriers as well. Because reading about it versus talking about it or listening to someone share the story of a brand is very different. I could read about the brand story, I could hear it from the person who's selling the product to me. And when
Someone
that person is selling it, it's very different. When you see the emotion on that person's face when they're talking about this particular product. I've seen it happening when the brand managers come and talk to me, and then I want to see the expression on my customer's face when I'm telling them the story as well.
someone once told me, and I tell you, this stays with me for life. They said
Yeah.
that if you don't like telling stories, go sell potatoes. Like, stop trying to sell luxury, because
Yeah.
you have to create desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to
So
feel
then,
that. No, if I'm spending that much money, I mean, think about it from the customer point of view. It's fun. It's an immersive experience, and I want that.
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
Otherwise, but that's also. I think somebody asked a question about the future of optical online, luxury optical sales somewhere. The question had popped up on the screen.
Okay.
I think what I want to say is luxury across the world doesn't necessarily sell online. So high value products need a certain engagement which can only happen face to face, and you've seen that with a lot of other product categories like precious jewelry, where they started online but they eventually opened brick and mortar stores to create that experience, and that's important. But with the
Absolutely.
current times and with your consumer changing, right? Your consumers are getting younger, who grew up on with like digital media, who grew up with gadgets in their hands. They first search for everything online. So while you might not sell online, you might not engage in a commercial activity online, you need to be present, you need to educate, you need to start building that experience and seamlessly integrate it into your offline business. So, your Instagram page, your website, all of it needs to be screaming luxury if you're trying to sell luxury. And
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, if I'm going to come and spend upwards of 20,000 rupees, I want to come. I want to come to you and do it, or I want you to come to me and do it, right?
Absolutely.
Providing
Yeah.
an at-home service is a great option for a lot of people, and well, that's also luxury, right? If you can't come
Yeah.
to us, we'll come to you. We're going that extra mile. But when I pick up my gadget and I start searching, because that's when I start, it's called researching my next buy. Earlier, I used to do it flipping through magazines or through window shopping. Now I'm doing it online. So help me do that research.
Yeah.
You provide me with that information. I want the optical retailer to provide me with the information. The ones who are actual, authentic sellers of the product, as opposed to some dubious websites.
Yeah, I agree. So you start engaging with the customer online. You can either take it offline or you can continue to sell it through so many other channels, but still engaging with them through technology. So you still see a person at the other side. In fact, this is something that we are learning how to do it now. And it's I wouldn't say like, sometime back there wasn't this need for I mean our customer base would have been the person around that area. But today, because even the person doesn't want to step out of the house, we have found ways in which they have been able to reach us, and we've been able to convert the sale through different channels online itself. WhatsApp video call, sufficient. You can just like have an interactive call with the customer, and they find you online, they want to know about a brand, and we are able to make that sale through so many different channels. So,
I know
yeah, you're right
there's
about that.
people who are selling jewelry online. One of the people I was associated with a while ago, one of the brands, they are selling their jewelry through video calls like what we are doing today. So they ask the customer to not just browse through their catalog, but they get online with them, keep sending them links, discussing it, and then picking up the products. And
Showing
there's
it
an
to them.
SP
Yeah,
involved in the way you demonstrate the product. You can't just, you have to give it its due, right? You have to present it properly
absolutely.
and things like that. And yeah, so definitely.
So these things require
I,
some
I
time
want the online
decoding. Yeah,
engagement as a
agreed.
customer.
Yeah,
And I think what we need to do is start thinking as customers more than just
yeah,
retailers.
exactly. So then the next question here is, well, the pandemic virus, brands don't prefer Chinese factories. Do you agree? It's a sentiment right now, and we'll just have to wait and see how things go. I don't think people have many options at this point. So it's definitely a hard question to answer,
I think that's
right?
a global decision which is going to
Yeah,
happen with much larger forces in play than just preferences.
absolutely. So we'll go through a couple of more questions and then maybe we can wrap it up. So yeah, acetate or thick PC related to which brand? I'm not sure.
I think he was talking
I think
about
it's
the
it's
Cutler and
acetate.
Ross
Cutter and
product.
Ross is acetate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
It's
acetate.
acetate because acetate, I'm sorry, is a far better hand feel. I mean,
It's yeah,
it's heavier and all of that, but pure acetate and cut from solid pieces of acetate, first of all, is considered to be much more better in terms of quality because it's consistent. It's not injected plastics, right? Which is,
exactly.
yeah, it's lighter and it's cheaper in manufacturing, but well, we're not talking about cheaper, right?
Yeah.
We're talking
And
about
then
quality. and nothing feels as good as that acetate does. You can totally tell the
Absolutely.
difference.
So acetate also happens to be an extract, a cotton extract, which is then like blended and then made. So it's something which has the ability for it to last like a long period of time, and the properties which aren't like completely, I would say somewhere leaning towards eco-friendly versus non or sustainable versus non-sustainable products.
It's very
Uh,
sustainable, and I was reading some of the other brands, some of these brands nowadays were using bamboo chips to actually polish the acetate. So the finishing
okay.
is much deeper and much more beautiful, but also it makes it environment friendly instead of having to use other artificial means of polishing it. They just tumble it with a lot of bamboo chips to get the shine. It's a very interesting process.
Well, it's been like an exciting session.
So, thank you for tuning into the session that we've had today, and it's been really nice to discuss this first chapter of This is Luxury with Vibhinta. And we look forward to having a lot more revolving around luxury eyewear. So, stay tuned.